Welcome to this session on LAMStack by AmazingDevops.com. I'm really excited about the stuff that are ahead of us. Also, when you get a chance, check out our website for more courses in Linux, AWS Cloud, Ansible, Terraform, Kubernetes, Prometheus and Grafana, and EOK. Now, let's look at what we have here. What we have today is LAMStack, and of course, as you can see, this is acronym. This acronym stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. We are looking now at the agenda. We're going to, of course, to introduce the LAMStack. As you can see, we'll start with Linux. In this case, specifically in the project that we have, we are going to be using Ubuntu. Apache is going to be used as a reliable web server. We have PHP, which is going to be very important in the creation of dynamic content. We're going to have MySQL, which is going to be used as a relational database to store information that is based on our web application or website. We have PHPMyAdmin. I would like you to realize here that PHPMyAdmin is not part of the stack. It is added anytime we are using MySQL because it's very efficient when it comes to the management of the database, specifically the one that is stored in MySQL. Then we are going to look at DevOps and LAMStack synergy. And then, of course, we'll look at how a DevOps engineer can enhance the development environment and make it efficient. Here we are going to start with the introduction of what a LAMStack is. It's nothing but it's just a combination of many different tools. In this case, we have Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and it's mostly used for web development. It's very important because it powers many websites and web applications today. Why do we need LAMStack and why is it important? One of the biggest advantages, of course, is the cost. It's an open source, so no license fees are needed. It's very efficient, of course, because they have been tried and tested as a solution for many years. And this helps, of course, to speed up the development lifecycle. When it comes to maintenance, this stack is always maintained and, of course, is updated by the global community. There is always a global community that are, of course, involved in the maintenance of this stack. It's also backed by a large global IT community, which is also very important, especially for the progress and, of course, for the updates of the LAMStack. Flexibility to provide reliable and flexible solution for developers. Now we look at LAMStack for backend development. Now here we are looking at the backend application components. Data processing software, database component, business logic in code, API for communication. It's also very important because it's used for creating static and dynamic web content. When we talk about static and dynamic, the difference is that dynamic is usually changing all the time. Static usually stay the same. A good example of a dynamic content is the username and password. Every user that visits a web application or a website is always going to be different. It's going to be changing based on the users that are visiting the web application. Static is almost always the same. For instance, if you go to many website or web application, in most cases, when you type the URL on the browser, you almost get the first page, and that page is almost always the same. Although it can change sometime, but it doesn't change often. So that kind of content is considered static. Let us deconstruct the LAMStack and see what it contains. As we said, there's many layered tools libraries and programming languages that are put together and integrated to work as one. In our case, the architecture is very simple. It contains Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Again, as we said before, PHP-MyAdmin is not part of the stack. It's only added because it helps, of course, to make the work of managing MySQL database more effective, efficient, and easy for the administrators and also for developers. Now here, we have a Linux in the LAMP stack. We look at the key points. Of course, we say it is open source. We started with the Linux, which is usually the foundation. It's open source operating system, which means no licensing fees. That's very good because it makes the stack cheap. It's always going to be the first layer of the LAMP stack, and it supports other components in the stack. We are going to see how this happens, especially when we get to the project. Now we get to the second layer, which is nothing but Apache. In this case, again, is an open source. But in this case, it's a web server. The work of web server is nothing but to deliver the content to the browser, where the customer can be able to interact with the content of that web application or website. So it manages website files and communicates with the browser using HTTP. Now we come to MySQL and PHP. MySQL again is an open source. It's a relational database, which means it stores information in form of tables. If it was non-relational, it means that it doesn't store information in table format. To use other kind of format, or there is no format in that case. But in this case, it's a relational database. It means that it's going to store information in table formats. So is the third layer of the LAMP stack. Then we come to PHP, hypertext, preprocessor, scripting language. Fourth layer of the LAMP stack. MySQL, of course, is going to be responsible for storing and managing data that are coming from different users or from different areas of our web application or website. And PHP is very important because it's going to help us to enable dynamic processing of the content, or just the process of dynamically creating the dynamic content. PHP-MyAdmin is going to be there to help us with database administration. It's very important to remember that PHP-MyAdmin is a user-friendly interface for efficient MySQL database management. Now here we continue with MySQL and PHP. Again, the same information we talked about. But now I'm going to focus on this information here at the bottom. So it's very important to remember that PHP-MyAdmin is a web-based tool written in PHP that provides a graphical interface for managing MySQL databases. It is often used by developers and administrators to interact with MySQL database, execute SQL queries, manage tables, and perform various database-related tasks through a user-friendly interface. We are going to see this especially when we go to the project. PHP-MyAdmin is not a core component of the LAMP stack. Don't confuse it with the LAMP stack. It's just added for efficiency in the managing of the database, specifically MySQL. And it's very important to know that even though it's not part of the LAMP stack, it is very valuable. And it's very valuable because it is commonly used in conjunction with MySQL for database administration. Again, we'll see this in the project. Now we look at the DevOps, and here, of course, we are looking at the key concepts. The first concept, of course, of DevOps, or the main concept in DevOps, is automation. So now, As a DevOps here, you are looking to automate the infrastructure creation where you can be able, of course, to host this LAMP stack, or you can automate everything, including the installation of the tools that are going to be used in this LAMP stack. In this course, I'm not going to cover how to automate the provisioning of infrastructure that we are going to use to host the LAMP stack. That is another course that, of course, we do go through. And if you want to learn more about this, you can visit our website. And of course, we can guide you on how to automate the provisioning of infrastructure, specifically on AWS Cloud. Now we look at the benefit for DevOps engineers. One, it is speed up the development lifecycle, because this is always a tool that is there, is a stack that is ready to go, has been tested. You don't have issues with troubleshooting and all that, so you can quickly speed up the development lifecycle. Again, when you automate the infrastructure creation, it means that you can do this very quick without having to go through the manual process, and that's very important because that is one of the key concepts of DevOps. Because you are automating infrastructure, of course, what happened here is that you are writing infrastructure as code. And because of that, you're able to ensure what we call consistency across different environments. When we talk about environments, what do we mean? We are talking about different kinds of environments that you can find in the company. For instance, we do have the dev environment, we have the QA for quality assurance, and we do have the production, and sometimes we can have the monitoring department. To also facilitate collaboration and communication, because we can now collaborate with the dev people, and of course, automate infrastructure creation, which will speed up the development life cycle, enhance consistency, and increase productivity. And finally, to enhance scalability and resource efficiency. It means if we are expanding and we need more resources, or we need to expand and scale up, it's very easy to scale because we have automated the process of creating the infrastructure. And that brings us to the end. Now, I'm going to stop the video here. And in the next video, that is going to be part 2 of this, I'm going to be starting on exactly the LAMP stack project. Thank you.